Welcome to Inspire, the Angel Flores Podcast, where you'll be inspired, equipped, and entertained. This podcast is sponsored by Mosaic Church, a church for people who don't really like church. To learn more about Mosaic, please visit our website at greeleymosaic.com.
All right. Mariela, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for being on this. We talked about this probably 2 years ago, maybe, about when I had the idea of starting a podcast. And I was like, and you shared with me a little bit of your story. And I was like, I think this would be great. So let's start out with where you were born, where you grew up, that kind of stuff. Born and raised.
Okay. I was raised in Fort Collins, born and raised there.
Okay.
Porter Valley Hospital.
Did you go to school?
I went to Harris Immersion School or something. It was like a bilingual school.
Oh, okay.
And then I went to...
Was it one of those hippie schools where they don't really work? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's a different school. I remember I didn't really thrive that much.
Okay.
Even though I spoke Spanish and everything, it was just very confusing for me.
All right. So you're raised in a Spanish-speaking household?
Yeah, I was.
Parents?
My mom is Chicana.
Okay.
But my dad's from Mexico, Zacatecas, Mexico.
All right.
And so my mom... She spoke to me a lot in English, but my first language was Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you spoke to your dad at home,
it was Spanish. And
All
then
right.
with my mom, it was just, I tried, but I couldn't. I didn't understand her in my brain.
Really?
It was just weird. I was just looking at her and she would talk to me and I'd just be confused. Yeah.
So she would talk to you in Spanish too then?
Yeah, she would have to.
All right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I was a daddy's girl, so he always spoke to me in Spanish.
Yeah.
I was raised in a Pentecostal home.
Okay.
My mom was really into church.
All right.
You know, she has her own mission in Idaho, American Falls, Idaho. But I was raised...
She's a pastor.
Yeah, she's a pastor.
All right.
So I was raised Pentecostal. At the time, she wasn't a pastor.
Okay.
But I was raised in the church life.
So there are a lot of people joining us that don't know what that word means.
Pentecostal.
So just how would you describe it? How'd you describe it to your friends?
Scary. I'm just joking. I'm joking. Sorry, Mom. No, it's different.
Okay.
Honestly, it's what gave me my foundation of my belief of Christ and God, and, you know, and it also helped me through my postpartum journey.
Okay.
In a weird way. I never thought, I hated it. It was too strict.
Okay.
You know, skirts, you know, no makeup. But I think it was more of the doctrine is what I enjoyed the most.
All right.
You know?
So if there was this is how I would maybe describe it. If there was a spectrum of Christianity, there's very liberal Christians.
Yes.
And then there's very conservative Christians.
Right.
And Pentecostals are on the very conservative side.
Exactly.
To the point where women don't wear pants because there's a scriptural kind of argument for that.
Yes.
And they don't cut their hair. Did they cut their hair in your church?
No, it was frowned upon.
Right. So what about split ends? Could you trim those?
We could trim those, but it was
that's it.
Secrecy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and so in terms of the home, in terms of how life is lived, it's the pastor's in charge, kind of very authoritarian almost in a lot of cases. Structure. So that's kind of what you're describing, right?
Yes.
A lot of rules.
Legalism. A lot of legalism.
Yeah, that's where, legalism is really prevalent in that. And, you know, I think, and who cares what I think, but I think that that some people need that.
Yeah.
There are some people that need that very rigid structure in order to feel like they're Christian, in order to feel like their life has changed. So I think there's a place for it, but it's definitely not for everybody.
Right.
And it sounds like it was not for...
It wasn't for me. It was more for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she loves it. And I love that she loves it. She's passionate about it. Yeah. She just loves preaching the word. Mm-hmm. It's just, she preaches it different.
Right.
You know, she's very strict and she's not going to beat around the bush.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. How did she feel? How does she feel that like you wear makeup? To
this day, I hear it.
So she's still kind of,
Yeah. One time I had blonde hair back in the day.
Okay.
Every time I'd see her or my dad, they would just be like, no.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Especially since I was darker. Oh my God. They would love to come at me, you know, but I remained strong because I was like, I liked it and I didn't feel conviction about it.
Okay, sure, yeah.
You know, she did, and I respected that, but not me.
Right.
You know, and
once you move out of your parents' home, the Bible's pretty clear. When you're in their home, you need to obey them.
Right.
But when you move out, you honor them. But obey is different than honor. And now that being said, if you're 30 years old and still living at home and eating your mom's cereal, you need to obey her.
Yeah.
Because, but as you grow up, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so you grew up Pentecostal.
I grew up Pentecostal, very conservative. But at the same time, she was very, conservative, but she allowed me to wear pants.
Okay.
You know, she wasn't on me necessarily. Like it was just more her expectations of herself.
Yeah.
But she let me go out with friends, listen to, worldly music. She never, I was watching BET, you know what I mean?
So she didn't necessarily have her thumb on you. Yeah.
I think she respected that. And I think that's what allowed me to have a relationship with Christ, because the people that I went to church with and their parents didn't allow that. I don't see them with that relationship. Right. And I'm not saying anything because she did better. No, it's just the liberty she gave me the liberty to choose Christ.
Good. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I appreciate that about her.
The harder, this is what I tell parents sometimes, the harder you squeeze, the more they're going to wiggle.
Exactly.
And so your mom gave you some freedom to explore. And so that was what, high school maybe, or middle school, high school?
Well, I did have I felt like the Lord called me in a sense when I was in high school.
Okay.
But I wasn't serious.
Okay.
At
Where'd
first.
you go to high school?
Rocky Mountain.
Okay.
Go Lobos.
I was going to say, home of the fighting Lobos. Huh?
Yeah. But that's when I started my relationship with Christ a little bit. I didn't take it too serious, but I was on fire. I remember I was bringing people to church. It was like, I had a whole gang,
okay.
Listening
to DC talk.
Yeah, everything. It was just, but I don't know. I think I wasn't too serious about it. I still wanted to do worldly things. Okay. And she was really hard on me because she wanted me to respect what I was claiming. And I think that's admirable of her because it's
Makes
serious.
Sense, for sure.
Yeah, it's serious. Like if you're going to do this, then we're going to do it right.
Yeah. But you're also a kid trying to figure out the world.
Yeah. And
siblings?
I have two.
Older, younger?
I'm the middle. Okay. So I have an older brother.
The middle child.
Yeah. And a baby. Yeah. So I raised the baby because, I was 12 when she was born, and my mom was sick. So the responsibilities fell on me.
Whoa.
So I was running my father's business, the household, and going to school all full time while I was like 16, 17 years old.
What kind of business did your dad have?
My father had he has a janitorial company.
Okay.
So I was running invoices, paying payroll, doing taxes. Hey, it helps me now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
If there were any mistakes back then, she was a kid.
Mom. Yeah. But that's
a lot to carry. And then your older sibling is a
boy.
Boy.
But
how old is he?
Yeah, he's 3 years older than me, so he's 30.
Okay.
But in the culture, the Mexican culture, Latino culture, men tend to have a little bit more leniency than women.
Mm-hmm. More freedom for sure, yeah.
My household was like that. So mostly it fell on the oldest daughter, which is me.
You, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was even taking care of him at times. Like my mom was so conservative where I would have to wash his clothes still. And he was already 17, and I was
What's his name?
Jesus.
Come on, Jesus.
Yeah, but he's learning.
We forgive you now, though.
Exactly. He's good now. But, it's just a lot of responsibilities. I hated it,
Mm-hmm.
And so it caused me to run away.
Okay.
It caused me to run away from my house because it was just a lot.
Right. It sounds like a lot for sure.
Yeah. I was 17. I wanted to just be a kid,
mm-hmm.
but it wasn't allowed. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I ran away and I got married.
Whoa.
Very soon.
All right.
Thinking it's the escape plan.
Yeah. A lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I had my kid shortly after that.
Okay. How old were you when?
So I ran away when I was 2 weeks shy of 18.
All right.
I graduated because my parents were like, just give me that certificate and you could start dating, right? That's what the deal was. So I gave the certificate to my father and I was like, here you go. Can I start dating now? Because I was 17 years old. And he was like, no. So it was like, I started seeing where I was like, okay, they're never going to let me.
This is never going to happen.
No.
Yeah. Or at least in your 17-year-old mind.
Right.
I mean, at some point, looking back, it would have happened. But you're like, when you're 17, yeah.
Yeah. And my daddy was just old, conservative too. Like he's a Mexicano, machista.
Right. And first time he's ever raised a daughter.
Exactly. So I was, he has my sister Lucy now, so lenient.
Right. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
My daughter is in the room right now and she knows how that is.
Yeah. And I think they learned a lot with me.
Right.
Because they're not the same way with my little sister, which I appreciate.
Right. Yeah.
Because she don't want to leave home. And that's good. And I feel like as parents.
Her name's Lucy?
Lucy.
Lucy, you got it made and you need to take Mariela out for dinner or something. Anyway.
Yeah. She hears it all the time, you know? Yeah. But I mean.
So then you met your husband?
I met him, yeah. When I was about 16, 17.
How'd you guys meet?
His parents owned a tortilla shop in Fort Collins.
Okay.
And I was a customer. And he was my brother's friend at the time.
Okay.
And one day he goes, hey, can I have your number? And no. He actually gave me his number on Facebook. And he's like, hit me up.
Slid into those DMs, huh?
Yeah, slick. And so I did, why not? And so then the rest is history.
How long did you guys, so you were dating in secret?
Yeah.
How long was that?
About a year.
Okay.
I want to say, 9 months.
And then you're close to 18 and you said,
I'm out.
We're taking off.
Well, it was mostly me.
Okay.
And I just hit him with a surprise. Like, hey, I'm here. Whoa. And I mean.
Was he living at home?
Yeah. With his parents.
Okay.
So it was mostly like a surprise to them.
So you showed up with your suitcase.
Yep. And I was like, I'm here. And I'm ready for whatever you throw at me.
Whatever's next. Yeah.
And so, they accepted me with open arms.
All right. So you guys got married?
Yes. We got married, I think like a week after I turned 18.
Wow. Okay.
I was going to Mexico and my mom's like, you're not going to come out here like not married, conservative. And she's like, if you plan to bring him, you need to get married. So that's what I did. I was like, okay.
You guys went to the courthouse or did you?
We did.
You went, all right.
And we signed our own papers.
Really?
Not even a judge. We just.
That's it.
All right.
That's the same church that Diane and I got married at.
Yeah. And, the rest was history. I grabbed his hands and I was like, you promise to love me, not cheat on me or anything? And he's just like, okay. And I was like, let's do this.
Wow.
And so.
I've never heard of anybody doing that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know we're going to sign a legal contract.
Right. Yeah.
And they're binding. So I was like, you promise? And he's like, I promise.
So how long before you got pregnant?
I got pregnant. So I got married in September of 13. And then I got pregnant December of 13.
Okay. So
it was right after.
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And was the pregnancy, did it seem smooth and?
It was good at first. I did have a lot of morning sickness for about 6 months. So that was the hardest part because I couldn't keep nothing down. But it was fine. Now that I think about it, there was once where I woke up and I started feeling like, those where you get paralyzed in your sleep.
Paralysis.
That's where the start of this conversation began. Like whatever we're speaking on today, that's where I felt it. But I didn't think nothing of it because I was like, okay, I don't know.
I've heard of this before or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just, I was probably about 8 months pregnant when that began.
Okay.
But I didn't think nothing of it. I just shaked it off.
Had you ever dealt with anxiety or depression growing up or as a kid?
Yeah, I did. Okay. Growing up, it was, I think it was, now that I'm analyzing my whole life, being raised Pentecostal, you see a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff that a lot of people in the United States have never seen in their life.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the spiritual realm. I'm talking about,
demonic activity
exactly.
and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And it took a toll on me because it was very scary. My mom was very open with me at a young age, with all of us. And it was a huge weight knowing about hell and demons and everything.
They're
so young.
Yeah.
And so like,
you're 10 years old and you're thinking,
and I'm like,
oh my God.
Whoa. Like my thought was the rapture. Like
I'm going to miss it.
Yeah. So I feel like.
So those of you that are listening that might not be familiar with that term, the rapture refers to, there's an event in the Bible where Jesus promises he's going to return for his church. And so there's a lot of theological debate about when that's going to be. But generally it's accepted by the evangelical church that it's the next event on the biblical calendar is the return of Christ. And what that one thing that could look like is Jesus in one moment takes all of the Bible believing Christians, people who have a relationship with Christ, takes them with him and everybody's gone. And the people who are left are going to endure 7 years of the worst hell that the world has ever endured. So that's what Mariela is talking about is especially as a kid, you hear that term and you think, man, I want to make sure I don't get left behind. And so that, I can see that creates anxiety and
a lot because I didn't feel worthy. You know, growing up Pentecostal, it's all about actions. Well, I saw.
Right, yeah.
I didn't understand the whole relationship thing because it wasn't really, it wasn't emphasized. It was more on deeds.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't do it.
You better not do this or this, or you're going to miss the rapture. Yeah.
Because I took it so serious. I took it very serious because nobody wants to burn in hell.
Right.
But the thing is, when I would have like thoughts, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hell because of bad thoughts.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's where my anxiety was so intense because I didn't have any knowledge or peace about what I was learning. It was just more of like hell and condemning, and it was just a lot for me.
God is this angry judge who's waiting for you to mess up so he can smash you.
Exactly.
And send you to hell. And
yeah. And my dreams growing up they consisted of that, the rapture. And I would be so scared because I wasn't ready in my mind.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Someone's not answering their phone. Did the rapture happen?
Exactly.
Did I miss it?
Yes. Yeah. Or when I couldn't find them. Oh, that happened a lot because they would just leave and they'd leave me home.
There's no cell phones back then.
Yeah. And I'm like, where's my mom? And just that. And I feel like that contribute to my anxious mind because I think about things a lot. I want things the best to their ability. And it just created like a not so perfect, like,
if I was creating a recipe for an anxious kid,
yes,
this is what I would, yes,
I
see that. Yeah.
Because it was just intense. And then like when my friends didn't understand it, because when these things, it's very rare.
And even if they did, even if you explained it to them, they're not having it pounded into them over and over, not just at church, but at home and in Christian media and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's where my anxiety truly started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where I feel like I was already anxious in some ways. This just intensified it. And so like, it was horrible. It was.
So then you're now 8 months pregnant and feeling this sleep paralysis.
Yeah. That's where it began. And I didn't have anxiety because I was chilling and I was just sleeping all the time.
Okay.
I think it was more when I had him. Okay. After I had him, I think it was like.
So how was the birth?
Oh, it was very traumatic.
Okay.
I was in labor about 15 hours, but I was pushing just for 3. Like I remember it was just intense. Like he would not come out, and I remember. I
don't think the words pushing and just for 3 hours go together.
Yeah, they don't because
that's a long time.
My face was purple by the time I was done.
Yeah,
I popped all my I think they're the membranes, and I popped them all because it was
You're pushing so hard. Yeah,
and he would not come out. And
oh my gosh, how big was he?
He was only 8 pounds, but it was. I think it was
again only 8 pounds.
Well, I mean, yeah. For me, it was big. I was just like,
that's big. To me, that's big.
Yeah, I was like, what? But I did it. I did it. He was healthy. He was healthy. He did it. he came out purple because the cord was wrapped around his neck.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So that was very traumatic as well.
Babies don't survive that, yeah.
Yeah. But he did because he wasn't crying. He wasn't crying. And then I just remember hearing him and I'm like, he's fine.
Yeah, what a relief, yeah.
Yeah. But it was fine. And then I got sick maybe a week after I left the hospital. Mm-hmm. And then I went back and I stayed there a whole week.
Okay. Sick with what?
They couldn't find out what it was. To this day, I don't even know. But they were just, my oxygen levels were low. I had pain. I had high fevers. I think it could have been an infection or something because they were not letting me out of the hospital. I honestly thought I was going to die there.
Wow.
Because it was just, they weren't finding anything. They weren't, I couldn't get healed. I had this baby. I remember feeling like I'm not going to raise him. Like, cause I'm not.
Where was he?
Right there next to me.
He was there with you the whole time. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that was another thing because, I wasn't healing properly because I wanted to do everything myself. Like I should take care of him. And then I had a lot of pressure of breastfeeding him, but I needed Percocets at the time because I was in pain. So it was like, I felt like a failure there. Right. Because I needed the Percocet because I was in pain.
Talk for a minute about the pressure from the breastfeeding mafia.
Oh,
like,
gosh.
You know what I mean? Like it's a thing, right?
It is a
whole
thing.
Talk about that. What do you think about that?
You know, at first, I should have just taken the Percocet because I could have been home sooner. I needed to heal.
Right. Your body needed to rest and deal with whatever was wrong.
Yeah, right? Because I went through labor a week prior and then I'm sick, you know, but this baby.
So what are they doing? Are they just putting antibiotics? Yeah,
they're putting antibiotics. Okay. I had IVs. Like I was on bed rest. Like I had on oxygen. Like I couldn't breathe. Yeah. It was horrible. I don't even know to this day. They could have said it was MRSA, the infections at the hospital, but I just remember
maybe you were the first case of COVID.
Maybe.
Who knows, right?
Who knows, right? Maybe 8 years ago.
That's what everybody else says. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I had it in high school. I'm like, okay.
Anyway. Maybe. But I got pressure from my mom to breastfeed. But luckily, Gavino, his dad, his mother didn't breastfeed. She was like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Because take care of yourself. Right. You know, they're going to.
Good.
Yeah. And so I was like, I didn't know. I wanted to breastfeed, but at the same time, I didn't.
And your body was telling you, I can't. Like I couldn't. Legitimately what was happening, right? Yeah.
And then one day the nurse came in and she put Gavino and she's like, you're going to take care of this kid. We're going to give him formula. Because she finally convinced me. She's like, we're going to give him to his dad. And she sat him down. She goes, here's the formula. Do not bug this mom again. Like, don't bother her. She needs rest.
Good. God bless that nurse.
Yeah, whoever it was.
Shout out to you. Yeah. What hospital was it?
Poudre Valley Hospital.
Attaboy, Poudre Valley Hospital.
Yeah. And so I remember they took the child away from me and gave him to his father in a different room. And I rested that night.
Oh, wow.
I just, till this day, I still remember that rest because it was what I needed.
It was the best. Yeah. Your body needed it so bad. Yeah.
Even if it was like 4 hours, those 4 hours were crucial to my body. And then after that, like I started accepting the formula. I saw how easy it was. And it was hard. But at home, I also learned that Gavino couldn't help me because when you breastfeed, the baby needs you.
Right.
They can only change the diaper. I didn't like that. So I started like implementing like formula. And so he would be able to wake up and feed the baby formula and I could just rest, you know? And it's just something I had to overcome. Right. I was not a bad mom because I didn't give my son, you know, breast milk. Right. You know, I feel like
there's like a whole mom shaming culture.
Yeah. And I think that's not fair.
I'm like, that's great for you.
Yeah.
Like if you're a militant breastfeeder and you're breastfeeding your 12-year-old kid, God bless you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But there's this militancy about it. Like it's one thing to say, this is what I'm doing. It's another thing to say, if you don't do what I'm doing, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
It's like, come on. There's a lot of different ways
to go about that because it's not fair. There's women out there that their milk doesn't come in. Their milk supply doesn't come in. So
or it can't keep up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some can't. And so thank
Some
God.
10-pound baby.
Exactly. Yeah. They need food. And thank God for formula companies because it helps.
So then you get out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And when did what happened next?
Okay, so I got out of the hospital September 9th. And then October 10th is when I felt there was something wrong. I knew that a week prior, I felt things. I started Googling things because I was starting to be very over anxious over like what I was doing.
Okay.
I started having like weird thoughts. It was weird. I was getting kind of scared.
Okay. Weird thoughts like what?
One time I remember, which was scary. I was like, did I put chlorine in his bottle?
Wow.
And then that's when I first started to like see the red flags. Like I was like, So like what I did was like I poured out the thing and I put formula again because I wasn't sure. Like my mind started playing tricks on me.
Oh, wow.
Because, when you're sleep deprived, you're a new mom. I was alone at home. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have a car to leave. And I lived in this 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. It was like as big as this. So
This is a good sized studio, though. Anyway.
Right. But I didn't leave.
Fine for a studio, not fine for an apartment.
Yeah, I know. But you start from the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
I appreciated my house. Yeah, the struggle. But it was hard because I remember as a child, when I would get anxious, I needed to be busy. That was one thing to get my mind off the anxiety. But when you have a baby, that's taken away from you for a little while. It feels like an eternity. It feels like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I remember seeing this baby and I was like, what did you do? What did you do? Why is he here?
You did this.
I did this. And I felt horrible because it was heavy. I was 18. No, actually I was 19. We're 4 days apart. Our birthdays, my son and mine. I was 19 and I just felt like my life was over because this child needed me.
Right.
And it doesn't talk. It cries all night.
Can't tell you what's wrong.
And I was sleep deprived, and it was heavy. And at the time, his father, he's young.
Right.
He was young.
How old was he?
He was 21.
Okay, yeah. Still very young.
I
know every 21-year-old listening thinks different, but
yeah. No,
still have a lot of life to live. Yeah.
And it was like, it sets in for mom. And it does set in for dad, but differently.
Right.
The
pressure on dad is different.
It's different.
It's, he's got oftentimes in my experience, a man looks at his child and says, I need to provide for this kid.
Yes.
There's a pressure and there's a satisfaction to providing too, but there's this pressure on a man now to provide for his kid. And a mom is obviously different. You're describing, oh crap, what did I just do?
Exactly.
I've got to keep this guy alive. Yeah.
Yes.
If something happens, it's my fault.
Exactly. And I remember I'd get comments, old culture Mexicanos.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, don't you bug him when he's sleeping. This baby is your responsibility. And I just remember that clearly.
Oh, talking about his father. Don't bug him when the baby's sleeping. Don't bug him while
he's sleeping.
Right.
Because he has to work. And your job is that baby. And so I took it and I ran with it. So I didn't bother him and I knew he had to go to work. So I started dealing with this by myself at the beginning.
It's again, if we were designing
a recipe
for terrible depression, there's another ingredient.
Yeah.
And even that cultural shaming of, you can't do this. Are you not a woman?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because it's we can, this is what we're made for, but it's hard. And so I didn't bother him. And I just remember being up with this baby and I was probably sleeping an hour a day. But that was the first thought that I had. I was on the sink and then I thought about that and I was like, I don't like that. And so I made a new bottle. And then I started Googling symptoms mom thinking weird stuff, because I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
trying to self-diagnose myself, you know.
That's always really effective when you get up and start Googling what's wrong with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I have a tumor.
Yeah, more anxiety. I'm going to die.
More anxiety.
I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And so I just remember seeing a post where some moms started hiding knives from themselves because they just wanted to feel more secure being around, you know, their babies. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand that. Like I wasn't putting two and two. It was just weird. Like, why would they think that? Still didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I remember, right.
So they were afraid they were going to harm themselves or the baby.
Yeah. So they would hide the knives. And I guess that's a way to protect themselves,
sure,
you know,
I get
anyway.
It. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then
you're desperate, you're not thinking clearly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you just want to take care of that baby. Mm-hmm. It's like exactly when I made a new bottle. I wanted to triple check.
Make sure.
Yeah, because that is not who I was. Like, I know deep down, that's not who I was. I wanted this baby to thrive and be healthy. Mm-hmm. So it was like conflicting. And then October 10th, 2014 is when I remember this intense fear just like overtake me. And not overtake me, but like flooded me. And I remember this thought, I'm going to get demon possessed. That was the first thought that really scared me. Because I'm like, I don't want to get demon possessed. I've seen that. Yeah. And no, thank you.
I don't think anybody wants to get, well, maybe there's some psycho out there. Yeah.
No. And I started immediately praying.
How do you know it was October 10th?
I don't know why. I know dates really well. Something about
it's
me.
It's interesting that you remember that. Yeah. And anyways.
Yeah. And I feel like at the same time, that is where I encountered Christ at the same time. Intensely, because what is going on? You know what I mean? And then fear came in. I knew the good thing is I knew exactly what to do when fear comes in. My mom's church taught us all about fear.
How to pray.
And when you feel fear, the fear is not of God. Fear is of the enemy.
Right.
And so I knew that. My stance, you know, when you put on the armor, kind of got put on. Like something's attacking me. And this is not me.
So I'm going to fight this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember I started praying. I started claiming the blood. It was an intense fight. I called my mom, because that's another thing. I'm really open. Something's off, mama. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Or like, I'm not going to keep that in, because
did anybody say, you know, Mariela, you might have postpartum?
No.
So it was a spiritual thing at this point in your mind.
In my mind, I was like, okay, something's attacking me.
And maybe it was.
I don't know. That's how I started. Because it's like, I'm trying to get answers on myself, right? And so like, this is my thought. And I just remember I remember Christ. I consider October 10th my day of salvation. Because that fear went away once I started to call on Jesus, because that's not true. Like, I don't want this, Lord. Like, I didn't want to be demon possessed. Like, I don't want nobody to touch me but you, Lord. Right. You know what I mean? This temple is of the Lord. And I'm like, whatever that thought is, like, get it out, you know? And I just remember that was my whole journey. And then October 16th, I had
Let me jump into the demon possessed part real quick.
Go ahead.
So if you're listening and you're feeling the same kind of anxiety, so Jesus in the Bible casts at least 600 demons out of this guy. They call him the demoniac. He says his name's Legion. And Jesus gives us some insight into what happens when a demon is loose, let's say. And one thing is, he says that demons will go looking for another place, meaning there has to be an open host for that demonic activity. And so if you're joining us and listening and you're saying, man, I'm afraid I'm going to get demon possessed, you're not going to get demon possessed. All right. Mariela was she's doing the right thing. She's calling on Jesus and not opening up herself to say, hey, here's a place for you. So you can put that anxiety aside, because it doesn't just happen like that. So anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't. And
don't play with Ouija boards.
No,
anyway.
Don't. And that's something I had to learn, because that's where the weakness of my mind was, because I still didn't know the tools that I knew now.
Right.
And I just remember fighting that feeling because I didn't want that.
Sure.
And I chose Jesus because it was like a choice.
Right.
What do you want? And I chose Jesus.
Good. Yeah.
And October 16th, I went to the doctors for my postpartum checkup or whatever.
Okay.
And I just remember they're checking my stomach, and then I get lifted off the table, and then I just began to cry because I had this intense fear again. And the doctors were like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, so they took me to a room and they sat me down with the counselor, and I told her, "Look, what I'm about to tell you sounds crazy, but I feel like I'm going to get demon possessed, and I feel like the devil's after me, but I know that Jesus is with me, and it's a spiritual battle, and this is how I'm fighting it. I know you don't understand." And like, I told her like what I was feeling, like how I'm fighting it, but I know that this is not right. Like, I know my thoughts, they're not right, but I know what's right. And that doc or that nurse or whoever she was, bless her soul to this day, she's like, "I think you know what you're doing." Like, she trusted me. And she's like, "I think I understand what you're doing. And it looks like you got a good head on your shoulders." She's like, "Just continue to fight." And that was it. She didn't, because it was scary. Like, growing up, it's a taboo thing, like mental health. And
right.
If you open up, they're going to take you to a mental loony bin or something.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why people don't talk. But I did that day.
And Latino culture on top of it, where, I'm fine. Don't look at him. Because he'll cry. So don't acknowledge that the kid is hurt, or he'll, you know what I mean? Like, right. We have this culture about us that's just like, everything's fine. We're all fine. Don't act like you're hurt.
Right.
And I think part of that too is created by the fact that we're, there's a lot of discussion we can have about who came here first, right? We are indigenous people, but to a certain degree, we're immigrants. And so we just want to keep our heads down. Don't want anybody to notice us. Let's just blend in.
Right.
So if I say I'm hurting, I'm having these thoughts, I'm having a mental health crisis, well, then that creates a problem.
Right.
Like, I don't need this this lens on me or this attention.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yes, because it's unwanted.
Right.
Like, and I grew up with an aunt that was mentally ill.
Oh, okay.
But her son
and there
died.
was a stigma around that, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but now that I see it, she saw her son get ran over.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So I feel like it affects people differently.
Sure. Yeah.
And so she got put on Valium, different treatments back in the day. Okay.
Yeah.
So of course.
She was never the same, I imagine. Yeah.
And so that was my fear. As I was going through this, I remembered the Abancha. I'm like, oh Lord.
I'm going to be her. Yeah.
And that fear of you're going crazy, all that. It was intense. And then,
so the nurse was like, "You're doing fine.
You're okay.
You're handling this great. You're going to be okay."
Yes.
Okay.
And so that was the first acceptance, I guess, where they understood me, even though they probably didn't.
But somebody saw you.
Yeah.
And said, "You're okay.
You're okay.
You're okay." Yeah.
And that gave me so much peace because I didn't feel as alone.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through intense fear, anxiety is within yourself. Nobody sees it. Nobody feels it for you. It's something you feel by yourself.
Right.
And it's lonely, but she did so great. She was like, "You're doing great." And so I just remember they were like, "Maybe you're going through some postpartum depression, That's when it first was brought up.
Okay. So that was the first time that came on your radar.
Postpartum
so she
depression.
mentioned, "Hey, you know what? This might be
a little bit of
right.
that." And she goes, "It happens. It's normal. Moms go through it."
What do you, Mariela, you, I'm sure better than me, understand what causes that? Is it the imbalance of hormones?
It is. It's the imbalance of the hormones. Okay. It's the sleep deprivation. It's a lot of things. Okay. It's a huge life-changing event.
Yeah.
Babies are beautiful, but nobody talks about the labor. Nobody talks about the sleepless nights.
Yeah.
We just talk about the beautiful pictures and they're 2 months old today. And
right. Yeah.
It's all picture
Instagram.
Perfect. Yeah. But you know what?
Nobody Instagrams when they're crying in the middle of the night because the kid won't stop.
And not regretting, but like reflecting on what have you done?
Yeah. Because
I was 19 years old. I had no business. he's great now. But like,
right.
You know,
I hear you,
like it was intense. I took it very serious because having a child is a serious thing.
It is serious. Yeah.
It's a serious choice.
Right. Yeah.
And there's consequences for that.
Mm-hmm.
Good ones, bad ones. I don't know. But, it's all that. It's a recipe of different things. Yeah. And if you have anxiety, it's, you're prone. You're not most likely, but it's like postpartum.
More likely, maybe. Yeah.
Postpartum happens 1 in 9 women.
Wow.
So I was the 1 in 9 women. You know what I mean? So, it happens, but it doesn't happen frequently. And postpartum does not discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're nothing, money, if you're Latino, if you're African American, nothing.
Yeah.
It will get you if it wants you. And I also started seeing celebrities that went through postpartum depression.
So they're talking about it
So like I started seeing that there was a community for this. It was not completely alone.
Yeah.
And then also his father, my son's father, was also a great help because I would be very honest with him about my thoughts and my feelings. And one thing he always did was, I understand that. He's like, I sometimes feel like that too. Even though he probably didn't at the time.
Yeah. He wasn't washing the bottle out twice to make
no, he was just making me feel safe.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay you're having these thoughts.
There's nothing wrong with you.
And one thing I appreciate about him is that I was a stay-at-home mom for 3 years. Never did he not trust me, even while I had these thoughts. It's like he trusted my judgment. He trusted, even though I was going through something. You'd
be okay. He knew you weren't going to do anything.
Yeah, and it was intense. I think I had a very intense, because I went to a counselor and they called it postpartum psychosis.
Wow.
Yeah, because I started I talked to her about the demon possession and stuff like that. She didn't understand it like how a church member would.
Right, yeah. Pentecostal holiness, yeah.
I felt like my mom's church community kind of helped me in that too because there was no judgment.
Right.
Because they understood.
They're like, girl, I get it.
Yeah, like they're
the devil's after me too.
And so thank God.
Mariela, what were the darkest thoughts? Someone's listening and they're having them too.
I remember I lived on the 3rd floor. And I remember something was like, just throw the baby over the balcony.
Wow.
And when I would get those thoughts, I would hold that carrier even tighter because I'm like, you know what? No.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Just because I had these thoughts does not make it me.
Right. So it means you're going to act on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Or one time I was ironing my his father's shirt and something was like, burn that baby. And I was like, turn off the iron.
Yeah.
Walk away.
So then you understood the hiding the knives thing.
Yeah, I understood that.
Yeah.
I understood that. And so I started seeing postpartum in a different aspect or point of view. I didn't really go the therapist route. I decided to take it more of a spiritual route because it just worked more for me. But whatever, you got to find whatever works for you. But what worked for me was I thought about it as an angel and a little devil right here.
Okay.
And this little devil on my shoulder is telling me to do bad things. But this angel is telling me, that's not you. The devil is a liar. And that's where I started flipping things like, the devil is a liar, these thoughts. The voice of truth is going to tell me, you're a good mom. You're not going to hurt your son. You can do this. Through Christ, everything you can conquer, things like that. The enemy was more like, you can't do this. You're going to hurt that baby. You're not capable of raising that child. So I started flipping the switch. I'm like, this is a lie. And this is the voice of truth. So that's how that's how I took it.
Right. Yeah.
And it made sense to me in my journey with Christ and everything. And then I started looking into pastors that specialized in anxiety, but through a spiritual way. T.D. Jakes, Neil T. Anderson. I never thought I would come into them, but they would do podcasts on anxiety and stuff and how There's this one on TD Jakes where he's like, it's not a time to lose your head. I played that sermon for 3 years. Every time I get an anxiety attack, I would put that on.
Shout out to TD Jakes. I love that guy. Yeah.
Yes. And there was one where he goes, there is no time. This is not a time to lose your head. And that's exactly what I felt like the enemy was trying to do.
Yeah.
Because the enemy's job is to kill, steal, and to destroy. He wants me to do this. He wants me to hurt my child and destroy my home.
And even if he can't get you to do that horrific act, he loves creating the chaos involved in you fighting off that horrific act. I mean, he's okay just with that. You know, he still feels like he's winning.
Yes.
Because he's going to, you know, distract you and keep you in this chaotic state. He loves chaos.
Yes. And that's not peace.
Right. It's the opposite. Yeah.
Yes. And one thing is I started studying the Bible as well during that journey, because the only thing that would comfort me was the word of God. I don't know why, but the Psalms, the psalmist went through a lot of anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
And every time he would talk, it's like I was in that same, like if I was writing it, you know, and I knew that I wasn't the only one feeling this way. Even though David, he felt it in a different way. It was kind of, it helped me. It healed me. It comforted me at that time.
There's so much power in hearing these words. You're not the only one.
Yes.
You're not alone.
Yes.
There's nothing different about you. There's nothing wrong with you. But that's part of the enemy. The enemy has a very small playbook.
Yes.
And one of his favorite plays is you're the only one.
Exactly.
If everybody knew what you're thinking, there's something wrong with you. That's far and away his favorite play.
Right. It's a lie. And the truth shall set you free. And one thing I know, because at the time my mom was going through seminary and she was studying demons, because it was just, I would read. And there was
reading the enemy's playbook in a lot of ways. Yeah.
And there was a study of demons, their characteristics, what they do, how they play with the nerves, things like that. Yeah. I think Billy Graham was the one that wrote all that good stuff.
Really interesting. Yeah.
Something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I just remember that they would play with your nerves a lot. That is something they love. But one thing is, let me step back a little bit, where I said the truth shall set you free. The enemy wants you to feel alone. He wants you to hide this feeling because it feels like a bad feeling and you're alone and nobody's going to understand you, but he wants you to feel that solitude. He wants you not to tell anybody. He wants you to feel like you don't need to do that. But you know what? There is no shame in telling somebody what you're feeling, because this happens to moms. It's normal, but there's help. And that's one thing I learned is if I keep this in, he's going to win me this way.
He's winning. Yeah. He loves secrets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Secrets and secrets. No, the truth shall set you free. And even though it's crazy no, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And I love hard conversations. I don't know why, but since a child, like I just,
You're that kid, huh?
Yeah, I'm that kid.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's helped me. And that's one thing I've learned.
So Mariela, what would you say? This will be forwarded to women who are dealing with postpartum. And there is someone joining us who has had those thoughts, you know, hurt your baby, hurt yourself, hurt both of you at the same time,
Yes.
you know. What would you say to her? So it's that camera right there. What would you say?
I remember this one time when I was driving and my whole world felt like it was dark. And I felt like there was a lie that was being told to me, and it was, you're never going to get through this. This is your reality forever. And I thought that I was never going to see the light again, because my life seemed like it was just gray. It was dark. But now, 8 years down the line, I have a great relationship with my child. I praise the Lord that nothing happened, and you can make it out. There's help, there's resources, there's doctors, there's friends. You are not the only person going through this. And I don't want you to feel like that. I want you to know that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. The storm will go away, because no storm is forever. There is calm after this storm. Just hang on and find somebody that you can trust and just get it out. that is the first step, getting it out,
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's how I did it. And I praise God for all my family, for all my family that stepped in. There was many times I had to leave my child and run away because I was in my thoughts.
Yeah.
But
that's
community.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad.
Right.
Because you know what? That's what helped me get through this.
Now you have a beautiful, healthy son.
Oh, and it's amazing.
Yes.
Just, you don't understand. Like, he's beautiful. Imagine if I would have
met him.
Something.
He's a nice kid.
Yes, yeah. It's a blessing that I got through this. It took a long time.
Yeah.
But I did it, and I appreciate whatever I learned through that whole journey because it gave me a new perspective on anxiety. It gave me a perspective that anxiety doesn't control me. Right. I control anxiety. God has given me that authority because, we have authority. The devil has to leave whenever we say, because that's the authority in Christ. Amen. And we have to learn that authority. So it's a whole thing. It's like, I could sit here for hours explaining what I learned, but it's authority.
Good. Yeah.
It's authority.
Good. That's good. Good stuff. All right. So, I think I want to bring you back and talk about business stuff because you're an entrepreneur, own your own business, employees, the hustle, the grind, all that. And I want to talk about that, but I want to stay kind of in this vein. So where did you see God working in all of this? Because sometimes it can feel like in those moments, God is a million miles away, right? And he doesn't care. And that's one of the lies of the enemy too. God doesn't care about you. God's not real. He loves that lie too. Where have you seen God in all of it?
In the postpartum or in the business?
Just in the whole journey. Yeah.
I think it's made me stronger in my walk with Christ. I don't get, before any thought, I would run with it and freak out. But one thing I learned is how to put the armor of God.
Good. Yeah.
How to put that helmet on to protect the thoughts. And that's why the Bible talks about to hold every thought captive.
Good.
You know what I mean? I learned that the Bible talks a lot about the mind. You know what I mean? And I learned that God knew that we were going to get attacked in our mind. So he laid out all these foundations, all these verses that no, we are more than conquerors. We overcome. And so that's what I learned, that I stand in victory because who I walk with. And I knew that somehow, some way I was going to get out of this. And that's how it is. He's faithful, even when we're faithless. And that's it. Like, that's what I learned. He is faithful. And I still see him through this day, like to this day. He helped me there. And I knew that, like, when you told me you want to do this podcast, like, that's faithfulness, because I knew that during my journey, I was going to use this postpartum some way, somehow.
It's going to help a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. I just had to go through it. I was the vessel. I had to go through the torture to help somebody else. And I did it.
Right.
And I'm standing.
And I don't think God's like, hey, I'm going to put Mariela through this so that she can help others. But I think the way it works is this happened. This thing happened, and God says, I'm going to use that. Watch. Yeah. What the devil intended for evil, God uses for good.
Exactly. And I'm just, now that I'm out of it, I'm honored that he used me. At the time, I wasn't honored.
Sure, yeah.
I was like,
last thing you want,
But I'm honored because it's all for the honor and glory.
Yeah.
Some way, somehow, I don't know.
Yep. Well, we're still in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
And so it's impossible to know how this is all going to end. But in the middle of it, you get to see little glimpses of, hey, this is working out okay. This is working out good.
Yeah, and it took the desire to have children. I was so scared. Like the enemy robbed me of that because of how traumatic that event was.
Right. Yeah.
But now, as time goes by, I see that desire resurfacing again.
You're more open to it. Yeah.
And I'm not as scared. I'm like, let's do this. Let's do it again.
Yeah. And you're not the same person you were when you were 19 years old having a baby with no idea what to expect.
Exactly.
It's completely different when you've been down the road. So
yeah, I look forward to it.
Good.
Never know.
Talk a little bit, Mariela, about we've had these brief conversations about the difference between the kind of the legalism that you were raised in and grace. Because you've mentioned that you went on a journey.
Oh yeah.
Figuring out what does that word mean to you, grace?
I think grace is something that is given and we don't deserve. That is something I've seen in my life with God. I fall short of the glory a lot. Mm-hmm. But one thing I've seen is that God still loves me. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've learned is that God sees me how my parents see me. If I mess up right now, they're going to come in and they're going to help me, even if I'm wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they're going to still bless me with their ways of helping me because they love me. Mm-hmm. And a good parent doesn't want anything wrong or bad for their children.
Right, yeah.
And so I've learned that God loves me, wants the best for me. Mm-hmm. And when I am walking wrong, he will disciple me in ways, you know what I mean? And he will get me to where he wants me to be.
He'll correct you as a loving father would.
Exactly.
Not as an angry disciplinarian.
Right. And I used to look at him like that, that he's going to just throw me in hell. But now it's like, no, he's going to work on me. He's going to work on my heart. He's going to put events in my life to make me more like him. And that's what it is. Grace to me is just something you're given. Like, to me, God just gives. And I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Yeah. You know, he just keeps on going. And I'm like, wait, but I don't no.
You say, yeah, but you're my daughter.
You're my daughter and you know, I love you.
Yeah.
And that's just what grace is. And to me.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I learned in my journey. And I appreciate that. And I feel like if I wear pants, I wear makeup, he loves me.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, God,
there's nothing I can do to make him love me more.
Exactly.
And there's nothing I can do to make him love me less.
Right.
He loves me.
He loves me. Yeah. And that's one thing I had to come to terms with is that because the conviction of the skirts and all that, I'm like, Lord, I wear this outside of church. I'm just doing this to please people.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where
what I drew the doing?
Yeah. I'm like, you know what
are we doing?
Yeah. And I drew the line there. And I said, if I'm going to do something right, it's going to be for you. I'm not going to do it for anybody else. I'm not going to wear skirts just to make somebody else happy. I'm going to do it because if you are calling me to do it, but you're not, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then everybody has their own walk. Right. Whatever God is telling you to do, you got to do it.
There you go.
But don't make somebody else do it.
Yes.
That's your conviction.
And Paul talks about that. You know, there was this pig of all controversies in the early church around meat. Like I think it's so funny, but it's really a placeholder for anything else. And Paul says, some of you are clear in your conscience to eat meat. Some of you aren't. If you are, cool, eat as much as you want, but don't rub it in the other guy's face or don't make him stumble in his obedience because he feels like he shouldn't. And you take that word meat and you can change it with makeup or with pants or with drinking a beer or with whatever
it is.
We're on our own journey.
Exactly.
So yeah,
it's like the horses. We have our little cones. Everybody worry about yourself. Like, of course,
stay in your lane.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
And that's everybody has their own walk.
That's good.
That's how I see it.
Well, with that, we will wrap it up. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I know this is going to encourage a lot of people, and we'll next time we'll talk about becoming the tortilla queen of Northern Colorado.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us today. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode.